In the beginning, there was the plane of positive energy, creation's forge, the home of the earliest gods. And as in all things, even at their birth, it had its inverse, the plane of negative energy, the void. In this primordial state, the basis for all creation was formed. All form and energy flows from the ultimate source in creation's forge to the ultimate destination in the void. From this interplay of creation and destruction, the elemental planes were born, one for each of the cardinal elements, earth, water, wind, and fire. These were made of raw fundamental matter, the building blocks of more complex universes. The gods looked upon the spheres and saw that though the plane of positive energy could create souls, it had no matter to house them, and while the elemental planes were made of base materials, it lacked the spark with which life could be made. Thus they drew these planes together, and where the five met the material plane was made, and for there can be no plane without its converse, where the elemental planes met the void, the shadow plane was formed. However, the material plane was not their first attempt at life. Before this, there was the first world. Known to scholars of the cosmos as the gods' first draft, the first world lies coterminous with the material and the shadow plane, containing what some consider to be the prototypes of creatures that would come into being in these later universes. The truth of this is somewhat more complex. Perhaps it would be more correct to say that the ideas of creatures of the first world are the drafts of those of other planes. What marks the largest difference between them is less form or purpose, but that those born of the first world do not die and cycle through the river of souls, but reform as they were before, with the same memories and shape. Previously, this was interpreted by the spiritual of Golarion to mean that these creatures lacked souls. The Fae of the first world are claimed by no god as their dominion, and should they die on a realm other than that of their origin, they do not reform, nor experience a mortal death. Instead they are destroyed, what made them dispersed into its base elements, never to experience life as a whole again. However, it is not that these beings are soulless, it is that they are immortal, and a being which never dies does not interest the gods, and thus their souls are incompatible with the mortal cycle. What precisely causes the souls of the first world to evade this process is unknown. It is certainly not a physical incompatibility, for many of the Fae of Golarion, known as the children of the second world to those of the first, are descendants of the first world Fae, and they possess souls that pass into the mortal cycle despite their otherwise immortal lifespan. Most notably are the gnomes, whose mysterious mass migration to Golarion caused a strain reaction in their descendants. They do not expire from old age, but rather go through a process called the bleaching, which only occurs when a gnome has ceased to seek inspiration from life. The reason for this is a mystery in itself, though many scholars believe it has something to do with the nature of their existence in the first world, and how their souls react to the reality of a finite lifespan. Though the plane lies coterminous with that of the material one, the nature of it is to be unstable and mutable, a chaotic place that exists one step out of reality. Its logic is only that of dreams, and its physical laws mere suggestions that can be disregarded if one possesses the will. Some places on Golarion, specifically those of mystical power, are mirrored here in the first world, but not always as they are. What is a ruin on the material plane may yet be a tower on the other, having never been destroyed and still exuding its mystic powers. The wise will note that travel over any great distance on the plane cannot be relied upon. A journey that may take days on the material plane may take weeks in the first world, or sometimes mere minutes. One never knows when one travels in the first world, for here distance is merely a whim of a more powerful being. To think this is its only danger is foolhardy in the extreme. Many of the beasts here possess the form of those known in the second world, but are far cannier and much more hazardous. Dealings with the more intelligent denizens of this plane are often fraught with peril, for they have no concept of permanent death, and thus they tend to treat the lives of their guests with the same sort of carelessness and neglect with which they regard their own, for death is merely an inconvenience, easily rectified by a short wait. The most canny and dangerous of these intelligent beings are the eldest, the closest this plane has to rulers, or even gods. Each maintains its own territory and court, and the endless nature of their lives has led to a morass of political alliances, based mainly on petty grudges and whims of grandeur, unnavigable by those not born to it. Still, even among these chaotic Fae gods, there are rules, and those that run afoul of the shared, immutable laws of the eldest find themselves banished to other planes, destined for oblivion, even if they themselves were once eldest.